Choosing between traditional or Roth 401k or 403b contributions as a medical professional can save or cost you tens of thousands of dollars over the course of your career. So which one should you choose as a medical professional in 2025? I'm Kristen Burton, the founder of Millionaires in Medicine, and I'm a critical care PA that went from $161,000 in student loan debt to millionaire at 31. We've helped hundreds, if not thousands, of medical professionals learn how to optimize their finances and win with money. So this question is one of the most common questions we get, and that's why I wanted to take a deep dive into explaining the reason behind which one you should choose. Let's kick off with basic definitions. Traditional contributions are pre-tax. That means you get a tax deduction now. When you go to withdraw the money in the future in retirement, all of the money is taxed at your ordinary income tax bracket. Tax benefit now, pay taxes later. Roth contributions are, in a way, the opposite. You make after-tax contributions now, meaning you already paid your income taxes, and then on the back end, in the future, when you withdraw the money is completely tax-free. Now, please remember, it doesn't matter if you're doing traditional or Roth, your 401k or your 403b is just one account. It's one single account. You can have labels inside of it as this much is traditional, this much is Roth. It's still one account. The annual contribution limits still apply, which for 2025 is $23,500, regardless of which one you choose. And if you do a mix, the cap, $23,500, applies to all of it. Also, very common misconception, this has absolutely nothing to do with your Roth IRA. So if you were confused about that, if you thought, well, I can't have that account, I already have a Roth at work, they have absolutely nothing to do with each other. Roth is a label for how you want money taxed. Okay, your 401k or 403b has nothing to do with your Roth IRA. So keep that in mind as we move forward. Now, there's some very simple, old sayings that will help you sort of navigate what this means. High income should do traditional, low income should do Roth. Well, there's a lot more to it than that, and we're going to talk about the nuance behind it because that little rule of thumb that you might have heard, it lacks a lot, especially when you factor in some extra stuff that medical professionals often have going on with student loans. First off, I like to really think about what I'm doing when I'm making one of these selections. I'm kind of hedging my bet in terms of taxes in the future. Either I'm taking a tax break now, hoping and praying that in the future, either my income tax bracket will be lower or all income tax brackets will be lower. And if I'm choosing Roth, I'm just paying my taxes now, hoping that this is my sort of hedge against rising tax brackets later. Either my own personal tax bracket is the same or higher, or all tax brackets are higher. Now, how do you know what tax brackets will be when you go to retire? Well, good luck, right? None of us have a magic 8-ball, but I do think it's helpful to actually look at historical tax brackets to see where we stand now compared to what's happened in the past. There have been seasons, as you can see on this graph, where the top marginal tax bracket has actually been like 70 to 90%. Huge difference when you compare to right now. Right now, that number is 37%, which is substantially less than tax brackets have been in the past. Will we ever see those 70 to 90% ranges again? I don't know, but neither do you, right? So that's what you're essentially doing is projecting or guesstimating what you think your future tax bracket will be and all future tax brackets will be when you make this call. Now, for most mid-career professionals in medicine, you're likely between like 24 to 37% right now from a federal tax standpoint. Now, of course, you have to factor in state income taxes, and we'll talk about that in a minute. That range is fairly large. If you're a brand new graduate and your income is the lowest for your profession, you might end up on the lower side of that. And if you are a strong negotiator, we hope you are, or you have some season to you, right? Like you've been around clinically, you have some experience, your income is higher, then you might be on the higher end of that. That still doesn't define for sure which choice you should make, but that's something to think about. You have to determine before you can make the projection of what you think your tax bracket will be later, you need to know what it is now, right? You need to understand what your federal bracket is now, what state income taxes are wherever you live, and only then can you start asking yourself the question of what will my income be in retirement, my income tax bracket in retirement, and what will all tax brackets be in retirement. Let's run through a couple of pro-Roth arguments. One of the obvious is tax-free growth and tax-free withdrawals forever, right? Like that's a huge hedge against a future change in policy and all tax brackets as a whole. So that can make you sleep a little bit better knowing you have $1 million that's tax-free for sure no matter what, right? Very different than having $1 million that's going to be taxed at who knows what. This is an obvious choice for people who are in residency or fellowship and are in a low income season. So let's say you're a PA and you decided to go out and do some type of post-graduation training, maybe in dermatology, where you're going to make $50,000 a year for a year. And you know after that you will never make $50,000 a year again in the rest of your life. That year is a beautiful season to make Roth IRA contributions and also Roth 401k contributions, because you know this is your lowest tax bracket. And so if there's ever a time where you really just want to bite the bullet and pay your taxes now, right? That would be the time. Same thing would be true, for example, if maybe you and your spouse have a year where you have a child and you both take a protracted period of time off of work. For that calendar year, you'll probably have a lower income tax bracket than you typically would moving forward. That again could be a good year to consider Roth contributions. Now, if you're someone who expects a higher income in the future in retirement, this is another great point to make, that even if you're in a high income now, if it's going to be higher later, that can still really drive you to make the Roth election. A great example of that is practice ownership. If you don't plan to exit and you just plan to maintain your ownership even if you don't work clinically in the practice, you may well have a higher income in your clinical retirement than you do now, right? That's a great example of someone who may make a Roth election based on an anticipated higher income in retirement than they even have in this moment. Another argument for is that you can get out of your required minimum distributions in a pretty straightforward fashion. Required minimum distributions are something that kicks in on the back end when you're in your 70s on any of these accounts where the IRS essentially says, hey, look, you're taking out X number of dollars every single year without fail. We don't care. If you don't, you're penalized. And if it's a traditional contribution, you're taxed. So that will shift a lot of people's tax bracket for one thing, but then two, it requires you to take money out and pay taxes even if you didn't need it. Well, if you have Roth 401k dollars, it's really easy to convert that into a Roth IRA and you'll never have to take RMDs. Now, don't get me wrong, you can take your traditional 401k dollars, you can roll them into a Roth IRA. It's a Roth conversion, it's a taxable event. People structure this whole thing called a Roth conversion ladder to do this, and you can ultimately avoid your RMDs that way and end up with the money in a Roth IRA, but you're gonna have to pay taxes in a stepwise fashion, less favorable than if you already have the dollars in a Roth 401k. You can just roll that money into a Roth IRA, avoid your RMDs, and that's a tax neutral event. So that's a thought, right, as to a pro-Roth argument. Now, pro-traditional arguments exist as well. Obviously, the higher your tax bracket, the more favorable it is to make a traditional contribution. So if you as a household earn $500,000 a year, making a traditional election may make a lot more sense than if you earn $50,000 a year, right? Because your federal income tax bracket is substantially different. This is also helpful if you think about lowering your AGI and the other benefits that come with that. If you are someone who's pursuing public service loan forgiveness, we'll circle back to this, that actually matters quite a bit. Now, in addition, you have to think about the state income tax as you're deciding traditional versus Roth. And an argument pro-traditional would be you living in a very high income tax state. Think California, right? The higher your tax burden on your income, the more favorable traditional becomes. And so if you're in a high federal bracket and you're in a state with high state income taxes, that combination may really push you into the category of making traditional contributions. Now, if you run calculations and you exclude student loan strategy, a lot of the time for people sub 45, making a Roth contribution wins the day in terms of just math. However, if you are someone who actually reinvests your tax saving and you're in a high tax bracket, Mathematically, you will find a scenario where traditional contributions will win for you. What does it mean to reinvest your tax savings? It basically means if you put in $1,000 to a traditional 401k and you would have paid, let's just make it real easy, 25% tax on that $1,000, you would have paid $250 in taxes, right? Well, you didn't because you put a traditional 401k contribution in place instead. So you saved $250 in tax. If you take that $250 and you reinvest it in your after-tax brokerage account, that's reinvesting your tax savings, those people will win, right? When you have a high tax bracket and you're reinvesting the tax savings, you will find the math can often favor traditional contribution. Outside of that, it often favors Roth. Now, who does that? Not that many folks, right? A lot of people invest in their 401k, maybe throw $500 a month in their Roth IRA. They call it a day. That's all the investing they're doing. And in that situation, you're not actually really reinvesting those tax savings. And so you're not putting yourself in a position to maximally benefit from making a traditional 401k contribution. Now, before I go any further, I wanted to mention our sponsor for this YouTube video is PROTUITY. I'm guessing if you're a medical professional, you probably have life insurance from work. It's probably one extra annual income and it's woefully insufficient for what you need. Every medical professional with any kind of financial dependent, a spouse, a kid, a co-signer on a loan that doesn't go away with your death or disability, you need actually life insurance and you need 10 to 12x your income. And so in order to get that through work, you're gonna pay an arm and a leg most of the time. If you go outside of that, you can rate shop and you can get a term policy for next to nothing. For less, honestly, than what most people spend on DoorDash in a month. So PROTUITY is actually a broker. They'll go in, they'll rate shop, they'll send you like 5-6 different rates all at once. So you can instantly view all the different policies available to you, their pros, their cons, their cost, in a matter of minutes. Millionairesmedicine.com/PROTUITY is how you can get in touch so you can rate shop, get the 10 to 12x in term life insurance that you actually need. Don't get scammed about an IUL policy, and please don't stick with that crappy policy that you got for free at work, right? This is what you need to protect your money, and if you want to do it at the lowest cost to you, make sure you're shopping rates with PROTUITY. Now back to traditional versus Roth. That current and future tax bracket is not where it ends for medical professionals. A lot of us have student loans that are more than most folks' mortgages. And so your student loan strategy will actually really determine which one of those selections you should be making. The most common student loan strategy where your adjusted gross income or your AGI really determines the output is using public service loan forgiveness. All of the income-driven repayment plans will be driven by your AGI. I'm not going to go into the specific calculations for each because, as you guys know, those are all in flux right now. But the general principles hold true across them on how they're structured when they're calculating your payment. It's going to start by looking at your AGI, or adjusted gross income. Then they're going to look at your household size. Then they're going to look at the federal poverty level for your household size. Then they're going to use that to determine your discretionary income, and then your monthly payment will be a percentage of your discretionary income. So on that stepping stone down towards getting that monthly payment, the top is your AGI, your adjusted gross income. One of the biggest things you can do to lower your AGI is to make pre-tax contributions to investing accounts. Your 401k or 403b is a great option. Your health savings account is a great option. Even making tax-deductible contributions to an FSA can be an option. All of those things lower your AGI. And so what happens is you get a benefit, of course. You get tax savings now. We know that that's the structure we've already talked about. But what you get when you're this person pursuing PSLF or really utilizing any income-driven repayment plan is you're not only lowering your tax bill right now, you're also lowering your student loan payment, right? That is a piece that a lot of people don't know, is that if you're maximally pulling this lever, you can change your student loan payment a lot. I've had people say like, well, I don't want to earn any more because my student loan payment will increase. Well, that's a crappy solution, right? This is a better solution. Let's build some wealth while we lower our student loan payment and earn as much money as possible. Okay, that's the best plan. Now you can do this to an extreme. We actually have a pharmacist in our world doing public service loan forgiveness with a debt to income ratio of about 3-to-1. And what he was able to do is actually take a 403b, max it out for the year, so that's $23,500. Take a 457, which he also has access to, max it out for the year. Take a health savings account, which he also has access to, and max it out for the year. year, and use all of that in conjunction to massively lower AGI, massively lower student loan payment, and build some wealth in the meantime. So in his instance, for example, he's using traditional or pre-tax contributions for all of that stuff. Now you might ask yourself, does he have a hedge against future tax brackets being higher? Well, yeah, it's his backdoor Roth IRA that he executes every year. While it's not as much as having a Roth 401k contribution, which of course could be $23,500 versus the $7,000 for 2025, it's still a hedge, right? You're still building the tax-free bucket for the future, and then simultaneously really tailoring the rest of your investing to maximizing your student loan strategy. As a recap, you can either do Roth contributions, pay your taxes now, and hedge against higher tax brackets in the future, or you can do traditional contributions, save on taxes now, and recognize that on the back end, you're paying taxes on all of that money in the future. Whether you choose Roth or traditional isn't going to be the thing that wrecks your financial life, but choosing the correct one can help you maximize your money and can net you tremendous gain over the long term if you do this right. If you want to learn more about how to build wealth as a medical professional, join the Millionaires in Medicine Club. It's totally free. You can get access below. There's over 5,000 medical professionals inside talking about how to clear debt, earn more, and build wealth. So make sure you join us inside the club. Again, totally free. Get access below.